The Battle of the Frontiers was a series of battles fought along the eastern frontier of France and in southern Belgium shortly after the outbreak of World War I. The battles resolved the military strategies of the French Chief of Staff General Joseph Joffre with Plan XVII and an offensive interpretation of the German Aufmarsch II deployment plan by Helmut von Moltke the Younger. The German concentration on the right flank, to wheel through Belgium and attack the French in the rear, was delayed by the movement of General Charles Lannesac's Fifth Army towards the northwest to intercept them and the presence of the British Expeditionary Force on his left flank. The Franco-British were driven back by the Germans, who were able to invade northern France. French and British rearguard actions delayed the German advance, allowing the French time to transfer their forces to the west to defend Paris, resulting in the First Battle of the Marne. Background: Belgian military planning assumed that other powers would eject an invader, and an alliance between France and Britain was not solidified by a potential German invasion, despite the Anglo-French Entente that had led the Belgians to perceive that the British attitude toward Belgium had changed and that it was seen as a British protectorate. A general staff was formed in 1910, but the chef d'état-major General de l'Armée, Lieutenant General Harry Young Bluth, was retired on 30 June 1912 and not replaced by Lieutenant General Chevalier de Celliers de Moranville until May 1914. Moranville began planning for the concentration of the army and met Belgian railway officials on 29 July. The Belgian army was to be massed in central Belgium, in front of the National Redoubt of Belgium, ready to face any border, while the fortified position of Legion fortified position of Namur were left to secure the frontiers. On mobilization, the king became commander-in-chief and chose where the army was to concentrate. Amid the disruption of the new rearmament plan, disorganized and poorly trained Belgian soldiers would benefit from a central position to delay contact with an invader, but it would also need fortifications for defense, which were on the frontier. A school of thought wanted a return to a frontier deployment, in line with French theories of the offensive. Lvcvlvs plan. Alfred von Lvcvlvs, chief of the Imperial German General Staff from 1891 to 1906, devised a number of plans that called for winning a decisive battle against the French army in Germany, Belgium or France as the war situation required. Aufmarsch I West was a contingency plan for a Franco-German war, in which France would be on the defensive and Germany would attack by invading Belgium between Antwerp and Namur and then advancing south to breach the Verdun-Marne-Paris defensive area. German forces would then hold there until rail supply could be restored and sufficient stocks of ammunition and food built up, in preparation for a second offensive operation. Helmut von Moltke the Younger succeeded Lvcvlvs in 1906 and became convinced that an isolated Franco-German war was impossible and that Italian and Austro-Hungarian forces would not be available to defend the Franco-German border as originally planned. Under Moltke, Aufmarsch I was retired, but in 1914 he attempted to apply the offensive strategy of Aufmarsch I to the deployment plan Aufmarsch II and the two-front war it anticipated. From his assessment of French defensive capability, Lvcvlvs concluded that the German army would need at least 48.5 corps to succeed with an attack on France by way of Belgium. But Moltke planned to attack through Belgium with just 34 corps at his disposal in the west. The Lvcvlvs plan amounts to a critique of German strategy in 1914, since it clearly predicted the failure of Moltke's underpowered invasion of France. Moltke followed the trajectory of the Lvcvlvs plan, but only up to the point where it was painfully obvious that he would have needed the army of the Lvcvlvs plan to proceed any further along these lines. The main German force tried to follow Aufmarsch I, advance through Belgium and attack southwards into France, so that the French armies would be enveloped on the left and be pressed back over the Meuse, Aisne, Somme, Oise, Marne and Seine rivers. unable to withdraw into central France. It was his hope that the French would either be annihilated or the maneuver from the north would create conditions for victory in the centre or in Lorraine. On the common border, Plan 17. Under Plan 17, the French peacetime army was to form 5 field armies of c. 2 million men, with groups of reserve divisions attached to each army and with a group of reserve divisions on the southern and northern flanks. The armies were to concentrate opposite the German frontier around Epinal, Nancy and Verdun-Mézières, with an army in reserve around Saint-Menehould and Commercy. Since 1871, railway building had given the French General Staff 16 lines to the German frontier against 13 available to the German army, and the French could wait until German intentions were clear. The French deployment was intended to be ready for a German offensive in Lorraine or through Belgium. It was anticipated that the Germans would use reserve troops, but also that a large German army would be mobilized on the border with Russia, leaving the Western Army with sufficient troops only to advance through Belgium south of the Meuse and the Sambre rivers. French intelligence had obtained a map exercise of the German General Staff of 1905, in which German troops had gone no further north than Namur, and assumed that plans to besiege Belgian forts were a defensive measure against the Belgian army. A German attack from southeastern Belgium towards Mézières and a possible offensive from Lorraine towards Verdun, Nancy and Saint-Dié was anticipated. The plan was an evolution from Plan 16 and made more provision for the possibility of a German offensive through Belgium. The 1st, 2nd and 3rd armies were to concentrate between Epinal and Verdun opposite Alsace and Lorraine. The 5th Army was to assemble from Montmedy to Sedan and Mézières, and the 4th Army was to be held back west of Verdun, ready to move east to attack the southern flank of a German invasion through Belgium or southwards against the northern flank of an attack through Lorraine. No formal provision was made for combined operations with the British Expeditionary Force, but joint arrangements had been made, and in 1911, during the Second Moroccan Crisis, the French had been told that 6 divisions could be expected to operate around Maubeuge. Declarations of war at midnight on 31 July. 1 August. The German government sent an ultimatum to Russia and announced a state of Kriegsgefahr. During the day, the Turkish government ordered mobilization, and the London Stock Exchange closed. On 1 August, the British government ordered the mobilization of the Navy. The German government ordered general mobilization and declared war on Russia. Hostilities commenced on the Polish frontier. The French government ordered general mobilization, and next day the German government sent an ultimatum to Belgium, demanding passage through Belgian territory, as German troops crossed the frontier of Luxembourg. Military operations began on the French frontier. Libau was bombarded by a German light cruiser SMS Augsburg, and the British government guaranteed naval protection for French coasts. On 3 August, the Belgian government refused German demands, and the British government guaranteed military support to Belgium, should Germany invade. Germany declared war on France. The British government ordered general mobilization, and Italy declared neutrality. On 4 August, the British government sent an ultimatum to Germany and declared war at midnight on 4 to 5 August, Central European Time. Belgium severed diplomatic relations with Germany, and Germany declared war on Belgium. German troops crossed the Belgian frontier and attacked Liege. Prelude. French offensive preparations. Joseph Joffre, who had been commander-in-chief of the French army since 1911 and the Minister of War, Adolphe Messimy, met on 1 August, to agree that the military conduct of the war should exclusively be the responsibility of the commander-in-chief. On 2 August, As small parties of German soldiers crossed the French border, Messigny told Joffre that he had the freedom to order French troops across the German, but not the Belgian frontier. Joffre sent warning orders to the covering forces near the frontier, requiring the 7th Corps to prepare to advance towards Mulhouse to the northeast of Belfort and 20th Corps to make ready to begin an offensive towards Nancy. As soon as news arrived that German troops had entered Luxembourg, the 4th Army was ordered to move between the 3rd and 5th Armies, ready to attack to the north of Verdun. Operations into Belgium were forbidden to deny the Germans a pretext until the 4th of August, when it was certain that German troops had already violated the Belgian border. To comply with the Franco-Russian alliance, Joffre ordered an invasion of Alsace-Lorraine on for the 14th of August, although anticipating a German offensive through Belgium. On the 8th of August, General Instruction No. 1 had ordered the 5th Army to take a position on the left of the 4th Army, ready to attack the southern flank of German force advancing from Mézières and Mausen, through the difficult terrain in between. All 4 corps covered this front until the 12th of August, when Joffre allowed General Charles Lanrezac to move 1st Corps north to Givet to oppose a potential German attempt to cross the Meuse between Givet and Namur, 35 kilometers further north, which extended the army front to 80 kilometers. As Lanrezac became aware of the size of the German force in Belgium and wanted to reinforce the left flank by moving to Namur, Joffre refused to allow the army front to be extended to 110 kilometers and ordered Lanrezac to keep the army in a central position near Mézières, ready to oppose a German offensive from Mausen to Namur. On the 14th of August, Joffre and Lanrezac met, but Joffre considered that only a few German cavalry and infantry parties had crossed the Meuse. With the BEF moving to Maubeuge and Hurst, a redeployment of the 5th Army would disrupt the deployment. On the 14th of August, a new intelligence report showed 8 German corps between Luxembourg and Legion. By the next day, Joffre allowed the move of the 5th Army north to operate beyond the Meuse. The 11th Corps was transferred to the 4th Army and the 18th Corps was moved from the 3rd Army to the 5th Army, which was made responsible for the defense of Maubeuge. Joffre began to dismiss commanders in early August, beginning with the 7th Corps commander Bonneau, and by the 6th of September had removed 2 armies, 10 corps and 38 divisional commanders, by transferring them to Limoges. The 7th Corps in the south was reinforced by 2 divisions, a cavalry division and the first group of reserve divisions. The corps was renamed the Army of Alsace, to relieve the First Army of concern about Alsace during the operations in Lorraine. 2 corps were removed from the 2nd Army and became a strategic reserve. Joffre met Sir John French on the 16th of August and learned that the British could be ready by the 24th of August. Joffre also arranged for territorial divisions to cover the area from Maubeuge to Dunkirk. The German siege of the Lvcvlvs ended on the 16th of August, and the 1st and 2nd Armies with 12 corps and the 3rd Army with 4 corps began to advance behind of cavalry screens. On the 18th of August, Joffre ordered the 5th Army to prepare for a German offensive on both banks of the Meuse or to meet a small force on the north bank. The 5th Army began to move towards Namur, in the angle of the Meuse and Sambre rivers on the 19th of August, which required a march of 100 kilometers by some units. French plan of attack. On the 5th of August, Joffre ordered an offensive by the 7th Corps, on the right flank of the 1st Army, to begin on the 7th of August towards Mulhouse. The capture of the 2nd Army order of battle on the 7th of August convinced Joffre that the strength of the German forces on the flanks had left the centre weak and vulnerable to an offensive towards Neufchâteau in Arlon. On the 8th of August, Joffre issued General Instruction No. 1, containing his strategic intent, which was to destroy the German army rather than capture ground. The offensive into Alsace and that by the 1st and 2nd Armies into Lorraine would pin down German forces and attract reinforcements, as the main offensive further north drove in the German centre and outflanked the German forces in Belgium from the south. Joffre expected that the attack into the German center would meet little resistance. The First and Second Armies would advance south of the German fortified area from Metz-Thionville, with the 4th Reserve Group guarding the northern flank near Hersen, to watch the Chimay Gap and deflect a German attack from the north or east. The strategy assumed that the main German force would be deployed around Luxembourg and from Metz-Thionville, with smaller forces in Belgium. On the 9th of August, an intelligence report had 1 German active corps near Freiburg close to the Swiss border, 3 near Strasbourg, 4 in Luxembourg to the north of Thionville and 6 from Legion Belgium, towards the north end of Luxembourg, which left 5 corps unlocated. The French General Staff inferred that they were between Metz-Thionville and Luxembourg, ready to advance towards Sedan or Mézières. Joffre set the 14th of August as the date when the First and Second Armies were to invade Lorraine between Toul and Epinal, south of the German fortified area of Metz-Thionville. The First Army was to attack in the south with 4 corps, towards Sarrebourg 60 km east of Nancy and Donnen 25 km south of Sarrebourg. Passes in the Vosges to the south of Donnen were to be captured before the main advance began. The Second Army was to attack towards Morhange 45 km northeast of Nancy, with 2 corps north of the First Army and 3 advancing successively behind the left flank of the corps to the south, to counter a German attack from Metz. The French offensive was complicated by the 2 armies diverging as they advanced, on difficult terrain particularly in the south, the combined fronts eventually being 150 km wide. The advances of the First and Second Armies were to attract German forces towards the south, while a French maneuver took place in Belgium and Luxembourg, to pierce a weak point in the German deployment and then destroy the main German armies. News that German forces were attacking towards the Meuse bridges south of Namur led Joffre to expect a German attack from Mézières to Givet, 40 km further north, intended to envelop the French northern flank, and another force to try to cross the Meuse from Montmedy to Sedan. On the 12th of August, Joffre allowed Lanrezac to move the 1st Corps west to Dinant on the Meuse, and on the 15th of August, Joffre ordered the bulk of the Fifth Army to move northwest behind the Sambre. No large German force was expected to cross to the north of the Meuse, which made the French General Staff certain that the German centre was weaker than expected. On the 18th of August, Joffre directed the 3rd, 4th and 5th Armies together with the Belgians and British, to attack the German armies around Thionville and Luxembourg, where 13 to 15 German corps were thought to have assembled. The 3rd and 4th Armies were to defeat German forces between Thionville and Bastogne, as they attacked westwards towards Montmedy and Sedan. The 5th Army was to intercept German forces advancing towards Givet, and then the 4th Army was to swing north and attack the southern flank of the German armies. The 3rd and 4th Armies would defeat decisively the main German armies in the west, and for this, 2 more corps were added to the 4 in the 4th Army, taken from the flanking armies.